Hey there guys, how are we going? So I just want to take a minute to talk about the Free Jokers storyline that's going on at DC right now. So for those of you who don't know, Free Jokers is a limited series being released by DC as part of their Black Label imprint. So far we've had 2 issues released. We've had issue 1, this boy here, and we've recently had issue 2. Now there'll be a 3rd issue coming out next month, which I believe is the final issue. Free Jokers, free issues, makes sense. So I just want to give a few thoughts about what I think so far, because honestly, issue 2 I think has really got me hooked. I'm really sold on the Free Jokers idea when I wasn't initially going in. So backing up a bit, for those of you who don't know, the Free Jokers idea has been around for I think 4 years. I think 2016 was the first reference to it. Batman essentially found out through use of the Morbius chair, which sort of gains him infinite knowledge. He found out that the Joker is actually there are free Jokers. He asks who the Joker's real identity is, and says, "I don't understand. There are free Jokers. What do you mean?" And sort of since then, that's been left hanging. It's been a background mystery that what's the deal with this whole free Jokers thing, and it hasn't really been addressed. And I sort of fell out of a loop of comics for a while, and I've sort of gotten back into them again this year. I sort of had feelers out. I had some ideas of what was going on, but I wasn't really in the loop. And I remember, I think last year, I suddenly remembered the whole Free Jokers thing, and I was just curious about how did they end up resolving that. And I googled it and found out that it hadn't been resolved yet, but they were doing a series about it this year, and I was like, oh cool, I'm going to have to get on top of that. So yeah, after 4 years or whatever, we're finally going around to doing this, and I was always intrigued by the idea of free Jokers. I always sort of assumed it'd be some sort of cheat, like, okay, everyone sort of assumed it was like what, Golden Age, Silver Age, Modern Age Jokers, but it's like the idea. I was always wondering, like, what's the cheat gonna be? What's the twist gonna be? It's not gonna be straightforward as there are 3 different Jokers. There's gonna be something. I was also a little bit worried about it because I like the Joker. I love the Joker, and I was a little worried about what they're going to do. I hope I didn't mess them up too much. But at the same time, I know it's comics. They always return to the status quo eventually. They'll change things up to keep things fresh, but things go back to normal. So I wasn't too concerned. I was just I was half-half. I was on my fence. I was interested and just hoping they didn't ruin things. So got issue 1 last month, and I thought it was good. I really enjoyed it. Gotta say straight off the bat, the artwork in these things is amazing. I'd highly suggest getting physical copies if you can, because these covers are just beautiful, and they each have multiple variant covers. These things are beautiful. The artwork inside is beautiful. I think they're definitely something you want to have in your collections. The story itself, I think it's very simple, but in saying that, if you take it at surface level, it's simple. But it's saying so much about the characters that you can just dig and dig and dig and peel away the layers. There's a lot to sift through. But if you want to just take it at face value, it's a pretty straightforward story. So basically, it's been Black Label too. It's unclear how canon these are going to be. I guess only time will tell. The Free Jokers reference was made in a mainline comic, so it should be canon. That idea of Free Jokers, this should be canon, but I think that was also pre-Rebirth, so I don't know how things have changed since then. I was still in the old New 52, as far as I know. But these are Black Label, so some people are unsure if it's like an Elseworld story. Others are unsure if it is canon. There are things. I'll go into some spoilers. Just to be warned, it will be spoilers. There are things that happen or characters in this that make it clear that it's not part of a current Batman continuity in the main line of comics, like where we're at currently, because Alfred's alive in these, and Jim Gordon is still commissioner. If you've been keeping up to the mainline Batman comics, you know that those aren't really a thing right now. R.I.P. Alfred, R.I.P. Jim Gordon's job. But it could be, it could be in the future, down the line, whatever. Alfred will come back from the dead eventually, obviously. Jim will become commissioner again eventually, because like I said, they always return to the status quo eventually. And they feel like they are sort of in a basic sort of average status quo Batman universe, because Alfred's alive, Jim's commissioner, Batgirl's costume isn't a rebirth costume. She's in much more of a standard black Batgirl costume. So I feel like we're sort of going for that. This is sort of like your stock standard Batman universe. There's nothing really to indicate where or when it could be in relation to anything else, except for the fact that it's obviously post death of the family, post killing Joke, because those are big events that play into this. So I'm getting ahead of myself. So basically, the plot is Joker's declared this sort of chaos war and organized crime, because organized crime goes against everything that he stands for, basically. He's an agent of chaos. And he's committing all these crimes from a city where they can't quite understand how he's able to do them all at once. Like, he shouldn't be able to do these multiple things at one time. And we find out pretty early on, the reader, that there are 3 Jokers. We see it. It's shown to us. They're not vague. There's no, like, sort of hints or anything. It's just we see 3 Jokers in a little hideout. 3 guys dressed like the Joker. They're the Joker. And they're referred to as the clown, the comedian, and the criminal. And what I love is that they are all very obviously they seem like the same person. It's not, because people obviously have been saying if they're 3 Jokers, how could Batman not notice this? But they all look like they could be the same person, but at the same time they all have very distinct personalities. Like, this guy here on the cover of the first issue, that's the clown, and it's sort of implied he's the one who killed Jason Todd, Red Hood. And then you got this guy here is the criminal. Now he seems to be the original Joker, the one first introduced in the 40s. He sort of got that pose that you'll see in the Joker's first appearance. But he's very cold, very calculating, much more serious Joker. And then you got the comedian, who is obviously meant to be the Joker from The Killing Joke, the one who paralyzed Barbara Gordon, that girl. He wears the same outfit. Not the Hawaiian shirt, the other outfit from The Killing Joke, and he sort of has a few other little sequences that make it obvious that that's that version. And in The Killing Joke, we were given a flashback of a Joker which showed he was a failed comedian, so it makes sense. But at the same time, they also sort of overlap a little bit too. Like, I think we're in issue 1, one of the Jokers says that he was the one who killed Jason Todd, but in issue 2, another one says that he's the one who killed Jason Todd. So it's still like a little bit of overlap, and they're sort of like referencing things that each other have done, and it's not quite clear cut, but obviously that's what they're going for. It's still meant to be confusing. We don't know 100% for sure what's going on, but the gist seems to be that the original Joker has made more Jokers over years. That's what it seems, and that's an idea which I would actually be okay with. If this were made canon, if they said, yeah, this is canon, I would not be upset by that. I think that's an interesting idea. Like, one of the big elements of a Joker has always been his mysterious backstory, and his lack of an identity. The whole famous quote from Killing Joke about, if I have to have a history, I'd rather it be multiple choice. And I think this only adds to that, and it would fit very well. It would explain why we've had, different versions of a Joker over years. His MO has changed, his attitude's changed. Sometimes he's more playful, sometimes he's doing sort of more gag-centric things, like making laughing fish and junk like that. It sort of plays heavily with the mythos of the Joker. It really works well. I can't help but wonder whether this was delayed till now to celebrate the 80th anniversary of the character, because it really does examine the sort of whole history and lore of the character, and I think that's really cool. It's not. It feels like it's been really well researched and written with love. It's not just some cheap surface level stuff. You can tell that a lot of effort has been put into this. This is like a sort of like a tribute to the Joker's history, while also trying to add to the lore, and I can dig that. And but in addition to the Jokers themselves, it also does a lot of work analyzing the 3 people who he's affected most, which would be Batman, Jason Todd, the second Robin, Red Hood, and Barbara Gordon, Batgirl/Oracle. Now, obviously, Joker killed Jason Todd, the second Robin, in Death in the Family, and he later came back as Red Hood. And he shot and paralyzed Barbara Gordon in The Killing Joke. She became Oracle, then later came back as Batgirl again in the New 52. And so this really does a good job at analyzing the trauma that both Jason and Barbara went through. We've sort of focused a lot on that. And I think that's probably one of the best parts of it for me. I think it's so good. Like, I love that sort of stuff. And Barbara Gordon has always been one of my favorite characters. And even Jason Todd, probably not as high up as Barbara, probably wouldn't be my top 10, but I've always just loved the whole idea of him, of his story. And I just really love it, really delving into the psychology of their trauma and how they coped. And I honestly, as far as I know, those two Barbara and Jason haven't really been brought together a lot that much over the years, which is still surprising because they sort of like have their shared trauma. I'm surprised they haven't pushed together before. Like I know something happens in this. Okay, spoiler. They do kiss. I know a lot of people are probably upset by that, but I think it makes sense. To me, it's like they're bonding over their trauma. Like I'm surprised this hasn't been before, but they both sort of fall into each other. It was just a little kiss, and Barbara says it was a mistake, and like, but to me it makes sense. I'm surprised they haven't had them bond together more. I think that that's a good idea. I don't think it'd work well as a couple, but I think it makes sense that they can understand each other's pain, and that they could easily sort of fall into that. Pain is sort of a bigger, heavy issue in the second part of the story. We see Jason's pain, Barbara's pain. You see like Jason's in Barbara's apartment, and he sees she's still got her wheelchair. She still has all these reminders from when she was paralyzed, and she still has these books on dealing with pain. And it's sort of like a lot of pain is a very central theme here. And I'm just really, really intrigued by all of that. Also, Batman's sort of like, I feel like Batman's like a third wheel here. I feel like he's obviously I'm assuming going to examine more of his relationship with Joker in the final issue. But I feel like he's more of a background play right now. But at the same time, we sort of have seen how he has been affected by both what happened to Jason and Barbara. Like, there's a really great scene, because the first issue ends with Jason killing one of the Jokers, and Babs sort of goes crazy over it. She's not happy at all. Second issue, she goes and tells Batman about it, and he doesn't react how she expected. He's sort of pretty calm about it, and he sort of doesn't really want to get Jason arrested because he'd have to unmask, and then sort of one thing would lead to another. They'd all be unmasked, and he can also sort of understand. And this really cool scene where he's driving a Batmobile, Babs is on her bike, and they're sort of talking over their radios, and they have this cool scene, sort of pull off along each other, and they're talking across to each other, and Bruce sort of says he sort of wished that Jason could have been stronger like Babs. He always thought he'd be like Babs. Babs has sort of been able to overcome what happened to her and move on, which not just in the fact that she eventually healed and became Batgirl again. I think more in terms of after she was shot, she reinvented herself as Oracle. She was able to keep fighting a good fight. She carried on. Jason, on the other hand, he came back angry and full of rage and vengeance, became Red Hood. But at the same time, they sort of acknowledge, Babs and Bruce both acknowledge to Jason and throughout the story that was mainly because no one was there for Jason. Jason literally died, came back and was alone and had to rebuild himself, whereas Babs had people there to support him. Jason says he had never really felt like he had anyone there for him. And Babs, apologizes, so that she wished they could be there for him, and that's what leads to the kiss. And it's just a really good moment. I like it. Like, you still see how vulnerable Jason is, how much Jason is still in pain. Babs, on one hand, yes, Babs was a lot stronger in that she was able to overcome what happened to her and move on. But on the other hand, she did have a support network that Jason didn't. Jason sort of was on his own, and you can just see how I like how it's bringing all these things to the surface and analyzing, and I just love it. Sorry, I haven't been that concise. Honestly, this is very sort of free-flowing. I didn't really make notes, so sorry for the rambling. But yeah, honestly, I think I would highly recommend reading this story. One issue left. I hope they manage to stick the landing. Hope it doesn't completely fall apart. Fingers crossed. But yeah, I am loving it so far. I think that if you're a fan of these characters, Joker, Jason Todd, Barbara Gordon, Batman in general, I think you're going to love it. Yeah, so that's it, guys. Let me know what you guys have been thinking of Free Jokers if you've been following it. And yeah, catch you next time.